California's Pelican Bay State Prison is located way up in the northwest corner of the state. This is a supermax prison. It is 275 acres in a detached section of Crescent City. Opened in 1989, this prison can hold up to 2,380 prisoners. As of January 2023, it had 1,711 prisoners, making it about 72% of capacity. The X-shaped cluster of buildings is the solitary confinement area, with just over 1,000 cells. It is organized into 132 8-cell pods. Each cell is 8 foot by 10 foot, containing a concrete ledge with a foam pad to be used as a bed. Each cell also has a stainless steel toilet sink combo with 2 concrete cubes to be used as a desk and chair. Armed guards monitor 6 pods of 48 cells at once from control booths. There are perforated steel doors that are easy for guards to see in, but not for prisoners to see out. The cell doors are controlled remotely, and prisoners can be allowed out to shower and exercise in 8 foot by 20 foot outdoor pods. Half of the prison holds maximum security inmates in a general population environment. The remaining prison houses level 2 inmates in an open cell dormitory-style facility for 500 individuals. And just outside of the prison perimeter, up to 400, level 1 inmates are located in a minimum security facility. 1990 to 1995 there was serious overcrowding. Approximately 1,000 prisoners were double-bunked, leading to serious injuries from cell fights. And earlier in 1989, just as the prison opened, guards were eager to assert their dominance over the inmates, and established a culture of violence. Inmates were often severely beaten, tied, and left naked. They were also to have been reported to be subjected to what's called gladiator fights, where guards would intentionally release 2 prisoners from enemy gangs and then shoot at the prisoners after they began fighting. An inmate named Von Dorch was serving a 10-year sentence for grand theft, and whose mental illness had worsened since being incarcerated. He was taken in 1992 to be bathed by guards after he smeared himself with feces. 5 or 6 guards subjected Dorch to a bath in scalding water while he was handcuffed. It left him with 2nd and 3rd degree burns. Media attention, including a 60 Minutes report about the brutality against Dorch and many lawsuits against Pelican Bay, ultimately led to changes at the prison. Court Judge Felton Henderson ruled in 1995 that the facility was not being used in a constitutional way, and ordered oversight by prisoners' rights lawyers and other experts. His ruling demanded changes to the use of excessive force by guards and the housing of mentally ill inmates. Another notable event was the 2002 inmate hunger strike. About 60 prisoners joined in on a protest of conditions at the facility and the practice of subjecting inmates to long periods of isolation. Then again in 2011, several thousand prisoners at Pelican Bay State Prison joined a total of more than 6,000 prisoners elsewhere in California prisons to stage another hunger strike in protest of overly restrictive conditions and extended periods of isolation. They demanded warm clothes and a handball for use for their 1 hour a day yard time, adequate food, 1 phone call per week, and the possibility of reconsideration of their long periods of isolation after several years. The original strike lasted 2 weeks and was repeated again in October of that same year. 2 years later, inmates resumed the strike again, alleging a failure to uphold promises made by the California Department of Corrections, this time with upwards of 29,000 prisoners across the state joining in on the hunger strike. It lasted for 2 months and dozens of prisoners were hospitalized. Media attention showed some inmates had been held over 20 years in isolation, and then more promises were made to investigate the state's policies around solitary confinement, and the prisoners ended the strike. In 2015, as a result of a class action lawsuit, California agreed to end its unlimited isolation policy. Inmates are no longer isolated as a preventive measure. Only those who commit new crimes while incarcerated are eligible for up to 5 years of isolation. Some notable inmates include Charles Manson, infamous cult leader sentenced to life on 7 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder. He was transferred between Corcoran and Pelican Bay a few times before passing away at Mercy Hospital in Bakersfield in 2017. Marion Suge Knight, record producer sentenced to 28 years for parole violation and assault. He will be eligible for parole in 2034. Ricardo Medina Jr., famous actor starred in Power Rangers, was sentenced to 6 years for voluntary manslaughter for stabbing his roommate with a sword. Joe Pegleg Morgan, the first non-Hispanic Mexican mafia member, sentenced to life for murder in 1956. Robert Walter Scully, Aryan Brotherhood member who murdered a deputy during a traffic stop and took a family hostage in 1995, only 5 days after being paroled from Pelican Bay. He was sentenced to death at San Quentin in 1997. Mark William Cunningham, American serial killer and arsonist, randomly shot 3 men in Santa Cruz in 1983. The murders went unsolved until ballistic reports got him convicted and sentenced in 1988 to life with no chance for parole. Sonika Shakur, former Crips gang member, author of Monster, the autobiography of an LA gang member, was sentenced to 5 years for assault and grand theft in 1991. Then was imprisoned again for parole violation. He stayed at Pelican Bay for 6 years and was paroled again in 2012. René Enriquez, former member of the Mexican Mafia, sentenced to life for 2 murders in 1993. He was moved from Pelican Bay to protective custody at Ironwood State Prison after becoming a government informant. Damian Williams. He gained notoriety for attacking Reginald Denny and others during the 1992 Los Angeles riots. Originally sentenced to 10 years at Pelican Bay, he was released early for good behavior, only to be resentenced to 46 years to life for killing a drug dealer in 2003. He is doing this time at Centinela State Prison. David D. C. Cervantes was the highest-ranking member of the Nuestra Familia gang in California. He controlled thousands of gang members in California and isn't likely to be paroled. Brian Oliver. He was the Taft Union High School shooter. He was charged with 27 years and will be eligible for parole after 13 years. Hugo Panel. One of 6 inmates infamous for their escape attempt from San Quentin State Prison in 1971 that left 6 people dead. He spent 43 years in long-term confinement. 23 of those years were in solitary confinement, longer than any other inmate in California. He was stabbed to death during a riot at California State Prison, Sacramento, just 2 weeks after being released into general population. Arturo Castellanos, leader of Florencia 13th Street Gang, a high-ranking member of the Mexican Mafia, sentenced to 26 years to life in 1979 for an L.A. County murder. He was isolated at Pelican Bay for continuing to run gang activities from his cell. He also helped organize the 2013 hunger strike. I hope you enjoyed this dive into one of Northern California's most infamous prisons. Be sure to comment, like, and subscribe.